This presentation is about platyhelminths and nematoda. First, I will start off talking about platyhelminths. Platyhelminths, in other words, are flatworms, and some unifying characteristics are that they are invertebrates, they are the simplest animals with bilateral symmetry, anterior and 3 distinct cell layers and cephalization. They have 2 tissues and organs. Their digestive cavity has only one opening for both ingestion and exgestion, so food cannot be processed continuously. The absence of circularity and respiratory organs is another characteristic of flatworms. They also have 3 germ layers, an ectoderm, an outer covering like the other groups have, an endoderm, a lining of the digestive spaces, and a mesoderm between the other 2. Examples of the phylum include marine flatworms, which are very colorful, tapeworms, planarian, flukes, and this picture over here is the head of the tapeworms. So their symmetry and body plan. They have a bilateral symmetry, their body is very flat, and they are not segmented, and they are acoelmates. Digestion. Their digestive cavity has only one opening for both ingestion and exgestion, so food can't be processed continuously. Their digestive cavity is branched so that food can be spread to all regions of the body. For planarians, the planarian has a gastrovascular cavity in which digestion occurs. More specifically, food enters the gastrovascular cavity through the pharynx, which is like a vacuum cleaner located at the center of the planarian's underside, and it is digested into feces and monomers. The feces exit through the pharynx, and the monomers are absorbed by the tissues from the gastrovascular cavity. The gastrovascular cavity is multiplied and branched, and so virtually all cells are near one of the branches. This is not a true circularity system. For tapeworms, adult tapeworms do not feed off humans but rather take our digested food. Tapeworms lack a digestive tract and absorb nutrients directly across the skin or cuticle. Health problems occur when the tapeworm becomes too large and blocks the bowel, robbing us of nutrients. Respiration. A flatworm takes in oxygen but has no formal respiratory system. Flatworms lack any kind of specialized circularity or respiratory system. Because they are so flat, however, they can depend on diffusion to transport oxygen and nutrients to their tissue. And they can get rid of carbon dioxide and most other metabolic waste by allowing them to diffuse out through their body walls. Circulation. Flatworms lack circulatory system, but the fine branches of the gastrovascular cavity distribute food directly to the animal cells. They rely on diffusion as well. Excretion. A flatworm gets rid of waste through the same opening it takes in food. Because of the proximity to water, gas exchange and the elimination of nitrogenous waste can occur by diffusion across the body surface. Planarians. They have 2 strands of branching excretory tubes that open to the outside of the body through excretory pores. The simple tubular excretory is called protonephridium, which is a network of closed tubules without internal openings. Tubular system is spread throughout the body. Located along tubules are bulb-like flame cells. Nervous system. A flatworm has a very simple nervous system with 2 nerve cords running down either side. It has 2 simple brains called ganglia, which are simple bundles of nerves. It has 2 eye points that help it sense light. Reproduction. Flatworms reproduce both sexually and asexually. Some planarians can reproduce asexually through fission. The parent constricts roughly in the middle of its body, separating into a head and a tail, each, and then regenerates the missing parts. Sexual reproduction can also occur. Planarians are hermaphrodites, and copulating mates typically cross-fertilize each other. Monogynines and trematodes. Most have complex life cycles with alternating sexual and asexual stages. Tapeworms. Thousands of fertilized eggs are released from the posterior ends of a tapeworm and leave the host's body and feces. Locomotions. Planarians move by using cilia on their ventral surface, gliding along a film of mucus they secrete. Monogynins and trematodes. Many have suckers that attach to the internal organs or outer surfaces of host animals. They live as parasites. Tapeworms use suckers and hooks that the worm uses to attach itself to the intestinal lining of the host. Impact. For the ecological impact, flatworms can house symbiotic algae, but most herbivores are feeding on other animals alive or dead. They also control populations of the important giant African snail, Artatina fulisa, which was displacing native snails. However, there is now concern that these planarians may themselves become a serious threat to native snails. Economically, much work has been done on trematodes responsible for economic losses. Fasciola hepatica, the liver fluke of sheep and cattle, but also of other animals, is one of them. The species may also accidentally infect humans. Their evolutionary adaptation. Tapeworms are well adapted to the environment that it finds itself in. These extremely interesting creatures conducts its life for living comfortably off the host. Thus, a tapeworm possesses no mouth and there are no traces of a digestive system, as it absorbs food already digested by the human host. The animal lost all of these organs over time by completely adapting to this way of life. Protection from digested juice. If flatworms are intestinal parasites such as Taenia and fluke larvae, they are provided with thick cuticle covering and thus become resistant. They also have sucking cups. Now I'll move on to Nematoda. Nematoda are also called roundworms. Some unifying characteristics are that they are invertebrates, they are unsegmented worms with bilateral symmetry but little sensory apparatus. They are protozoan pseudocolumate. As a pseudocolumate, they transport nutrients, but there is inadequate room for a circulatory system. Many are parasitic. Examples of phylum include worm, hookworm, and Trichinella spurlis. Their symmetry body plan. They have a bilateral symmetry, they are protostome pseudocolmates. Digestion. Nutrients are transported throughout the body via fluid in the pseudocolumn. The food enters the body through the mouth as it moves along the intestines and is digested into feces and monomers. The monomers are absorbed by the tissues from intestines and the feces exit through the anus. Respiration. Roundworms lack respiration. The exchange between carbon dioxide and oxygen occurs by diffusion through the skin. Circulation. Roundworms lack circulatory system but have an alimentary canal. Excretion. Liquid waste exits the body through a unique system of excretory canals that connect and excrete waste. Remember that roundworms have a mouth and an anus. Nervous system. The nervous system of roundworms is comprised of anterior nervous tissue surrounding the pharynx that forms dorsal and ventral nerve cords that go from end to end. Reproduction. Roundworms usually reproduce sexually by internal fertilization, but in most species the sexes are separate and females are larger than males. A female may deposit 100,000 or more fertilized eggs per day. The size species are resistant cells that can survive harsh conditions. Locomotion. The body wall muscles are all longitudinal and their contraction produces a thrashing motion. So their impact. Ecologically, multitudes of nematodes live in moist soil and in decomposing organic matter on the bottoms of lakes and oceans. They have an important role in decomposition and nutrient cycling, but little is known about most species. They also help in research. The study of C. elegans are revealing some of the mechanism involved in aging in humans. Many are pests that attack roots of plants. Other species parasitize animals. They also fight insects. Some nematodes can kill crop pests by entering insects' bodies and killing them with bacteria. Economically, many of the soil-inhibiting types attack plant roots, making them economically significant. So, in other ways, they are used to test the biological effects of spaceflight, such as genetic damage that can be caused by exposure to cosmic radiation. They also cure diseases. Recent testing suggests that more than 65% of human disease genes have equivalents in the genome of the C. elegans nematode. Evolutionary adaptation. Roundworms parasitize plants, and no single animal species is without its own particular species-specific roundworms. Thus, these parasites are very successful organisms and have adapted to a wide variety of host species. Roundworm hooks are accessory attachment apparatus. Roundworms have well-developed water osmoregulatory systems for controlling the water quantity in the body. Interesting facts about nematodes. Humans are host to at least 50 nematode species, including the rarest pinworms and hookworms. So the hookworm disease. The cause is Hookworm eggs are passed in human feces onto the ground where they develop into infective larvae. When the soil is cool, the larvae crawl to the nearest moist area and extend their bodies into the air. Then the larvae stay in the soil, waving their bodies to and from until they come into contact with human skin, usually when stepped on by a bare foot or until they are driven back into the ground by the heat. So symptoms are diarrhea, abdominal pain, intestinal cramps, and nausea. But when it's severe, if the number of parasites become great enough, patient may develop serious anemia. The one below is called Trichinella spiralis. The cause is that humans acquire them by eating raw or undercooked pork or other meat that has juvenile worms incised in the muscle tissue. Within the human intestines, juveniles develop into sexually mature adults. So symptoms: initial phase of abdominal discomfort, diarrhea, and nausea that begins 1 to 2 days after ingestion, and the second phase of muscle aches, itching, fever, chills, and joint pains that begins about 2 to 8 weeks after ingestion. These are my works cited, and I hope you enjoyed.